Okay, for question number one, in group number one, what is the other physical implication at the office during and after the during and after the endemic? What is the option and what is the solution by the office, by the construction firm, for example, in order to start asking the the staff to come back to the office? What is your suggestion on that? What is your suggestion? Let's say after the rotation, okay, for a few months you have to take turn. You have to come for 2 weeks, and another team have to come for 2 weeks. Then, in order to start with that rotation and also to ask all the people to come back, 100% attendance, what is your suggestion? From maybe you ask the staff from the company, right? So, what is your suggestion? It can be done by both. It can be answered by both group.
Company ceremony, I welcome all the staff.
Sorry?
The ceremony.
Ceremony. Ceremony, okay. But in terms of the safety rules, what normally they will do?
In terms of safety, distance.
Social distance. That is the first one. You mentioned about social distance. But what is the first step before they mention social distance? Yes? Swab test, yes. And for the construction industry, yes, they have to carry out swab test. RTK, that one is number one. But in terms of the social distancing, I think you should know that at the beginning, once the government allow, what they do, they ask the people to install all the tape on the floor and then arrange the table. That is very important. Okay, so that is number one. You mentioned about the implication of the in terms of rotation, the shift, that is good, but in terms of the swab test and so on, that one I think that is very important to be highlighted as well. Take for the social distancing. Okay, so Boku as give the response on that, so I take on that. Okay, what is the rule set out by the company that you have interviewed? Okay, to ensure that the work is not so delayed, even though you mentioned the project is not be able to complete within the time. I think I remember when Eileen explained about that. Yes, the project is not be able to be completed during according to the scheduled time. But what can be done? What can be done to reduce the delay? It cannot be continuously delayed just because of the COVID, right? So what option that the company give? Maybe it can be by by both group number one. When you ask, there must be something, right? Because everyone know the project will be delayed, but what can be done to reduce the delay due to the SOP, due to the cross-border issue? The government did not allow 100% to come, 30% only, 70% at home. So what can be done? The answer is actually in your poster. Just want to get your feedback.
The supplier need to provide more frequently the schedule, the what?
The supplier,
The delivery update.
can you turn on your microphone to answer? The supplier need to up to
Provide the delivery update more frequently.
yeah, so the supplier, what you have to with the company side, because you ask the people from the Eden and Pepper, for example, from the company side, what they do other than from the supplier, the company itself, what they do, what they delay.
Actually, they like discuss among themselves and set out a maybe extension, so allow for the parties have the time to complete
To
the
avoid the extension, because my question is to avoid the extension.
provide.
Your answer, I think your answer is there. I just want to get, you know, your opinion from the answer that you give in the poster.
For like
What about the documentation? Have you compiled the documentation earlier in one time in Google Drive or in the cloud that you mentioned just now? You mentioned about the cloud sharing, storage, everything, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible to reduce the delay?
Because it's like
share the document.
Share the document, so that can be one. Uh, for me, if you explain, then you explain, this is for this is the implication. But if I divert the question, but then the answer should be similar. So if I ask you what can be done, maybe you can say, okay, frequently get the updates from the supplier. That is number one. Number two, you may give the example of the technology. I think your group
Yes.
also mentioned technology, your group also mentioned technology. But in technology in terms of what? In terms of cloud system. So AI, for example, the use of the drone you mentioned. When everyone can see the information at one time that is not being applicable before, maybe before MCO, they rarely share the documents. But because of this, everyone contact through team meetings, they can send all the documents through team meetings. So I think understanding the contents in different ways to answer the question is very important as well. Okay, so both were able to answer. What do you think? When if I want to give you 10 marks? You
Share
sure?
document and
Share
delivery
document,
update.
Uh,
Update from supplier, your group?
Safety measures and minimize the workers. Even though you minimize the workers, you still can maximize the efficiency of working.
How?
Not schedule.
But yeah, stay inside.
Sorry? Stay in the
Yeah, for
site?
example, if the employees got COVID, not for site workers, for office workers. For example, if the workers got COVID, he and or she still able to work at home.
Okay, I accept. Okay, so that is the second one, the second issue. Um, okay, I also can see that the first group mentioned the options if the problem in the shipping, you may find another local supplier. So that is actually leading to the issue of the supply chain management. I remember the one mentioned by Amin. Okay, so but the issue is, okay, if you remember during the early stage of MCO, are you allowed to buy something online? Yes. So why you highlight on that shipping option? For the shipping option, but you did not highlight on the local issue. If you give the example of the shipping option, if you mention about if you mention about the raw materials, I accept. But if you say you want to get the material from China, from Italy, there is no issue. There is not so much issue because you still are able to ship using the container and so on, but just limited. So the word limited must be mentioned. You must mention the word limited resources and limited frequency. But then the raw materials also, that one, yes, I accept. If you mention you cannot cross border, cross state, that is also will be limited. Why? Because at that time you are able to cross the border, but you have to get permission from police and BT. Remember? That one, the news to make sure that the economy can be continuously done and not so down. I think that is the issue that highlighted by PM so many times. We would like the economy to go through even though it is slow down. So you have to make sure the work resources are limited numbers of frequency, cross border for the raw materials only. But then you have to mention yes, the country still allow the economy to be continuously tracked, but you have to get permission. That one must be highlighted. Okay? Both group mentioned about the shipping, but not clearly mentioned about what type of shipping material. But then the option on the local supplier, that one I accept, yeah, local supplier to increase the supply chain management. Okay, this one open for both question as well, but even though this one I triggered from group number one, what is another word to mention the need of construction technology? What is the main key points when you mention need of technology?
Need.
Yes, you mentioned the word, sorry, the need of construction technology. What is another word? If you
Demand.
sorry?
Demand.
Yes, demand, but the word construction technology itself is what?
Construction technology is what?
What is the example of the construction technology that you mentioned just now? The drone, what else? The beam. What do we call that actually? What do we call that? The demand or the supply? You want to get that one, if you want to use that, you get the sources from, they are demands on that, then the supply maybe increase. Yeah, that one is uh, being highlighted. You have to highlight that because I think the construction technology is very fast during this scenario, during this pandemic because everyone would like to use the software development and technology. But then what I would like to ask is, have you heard about IR 4.0?
IR 2.0.
Not 2.4, IR 4.0. The one maybe you can do better research on that because IR 4.0 are the main factors for the drone, AR, VR, and then the D. That's four. In IR, VR, it's normally put together the drones and one more is with the AR and VR. Okay, so I put here IR 4.0. That one you have to highlight as well. Yeah? What is the prefabrication example that you have mentioned in the long-term implication? What is the example of prefabrication? Number one, explain about that. What do you understand with the prefab? What do you understand with the prefab? Made in the factory. Okay. Made in the factory. Okay. What is the example? Material, the beam. You mentioned prefab. When you mention prefab, is it so what is your understanding? No. So what is your explanation on prefab? Have you mentioned as well? You mentioned about the specification generated prefab. I mentioned generated prefab. I actually would like to know whether you mentioned of example in your poster. If you would like to get more marks on that. Yeah? So example of prefab have to be highlighted. Example of prefab. Okay. I also highlight here in group number one. You mentioned that the downsize or eliminate the space is really considered as. Okay, my question is, do you really agree or is the group number two agree that the downsize or eliminate the space is really considered as positive impact? They have one key point mentioned the downsize of the office and eliminate some space under the positive impact. Do you really agree? And can you give the reason? Good number two. And good number one, maybe you can give the response. Why you mentioned that eliminating the space here is considered as positive impact? Good one? So if you mention here downing the size maybe from 2 story become 1 story, so the other area will be waste or harm?
Just like
Okay.
downside the office space.
Is it considered as
Not the story. Just the
what I understand when you say office space means from the 2 story become 1 story or how?
like the side office
Side office?
Side
Not
office.
not the office space work. You mentioned the space work? Okay. Okay, I don't want you just explain. What is your explanation of that? Are you agree? Yes. Can be positive and negative. Okay, why is because this not mentioned about positive, why you mention about positive?
Because there's space because of distancing or because of for example there's a gap. That's the negative part. So there's not that's the negative part. So there's not a lot.
Yes, less of the workforce. But then yeah, if you would like to work in the pandemic, you need to have more space actually, because everything needs to be double from the area. Let's say from that particular area you need 10 people, you only allow 5 people. So it can be actually in two ways, but I just want to get your feedback. Do you really agree that the downsize is considered as positive impact? I mean, what do you think? Your team. Hmm? What do you think? Yeah, I agree with Frederick as well. Me, what do you think? Is it really positive feedback if you eliminate the space, if you downsize the space work? Yes?
Madam, I think that got like advantage and disadvantage, but from the side on the employer, maybe they can save some electricity bill, water bill, like because they are limiting
Okay.
the space, so limit workers. So I think maybe this is one of the advantage
Other
or
than
the
that,
downsides. Yeah.
what you write in the poster? Do you remember what you write in the poster? I still remember, even though I first time see.
Some of the workers work remotely. It's more
Flexible.
flexible, so you can engage the
Okay.
size.
What happened with the space itself? That you eliminate yourself or what? Or it will be wasted? It's just like you don't have to pay for the bill or
No, no, the landlord can
the land?
use that.
The landlord can use that.
Landlord.
So that means they don't have to pay for the rental of that particular area? No? Junwei, what do you think? The one mentioned by your group?
就是想可以 rent 一个小一点的
Sorry?
Repurposing
studio
can use that
Yes.
for repurposing.
Yeah, the one actually
area.
highlighted by your group. I just want to hear that what because it is not necessarily answer from another key points. You can also use that. Just one just I wanted to explain repurpose. You may repurpose the area that is not being used after the pandemic. Actually, the question is what can be done and what is the implication towards endemic? Not necessarily when you say endemic, everything have been changed. No, some of the SOP remain unchanged, right? So you have to maybe explain in terms of okay, this is during pandemic, and then what happened now? What is the application now? Some of the information, some of the action have been repurposed, some of the action have been remained, some eliminated. Okay, right. My last question: how the initiative by the government policy assist in improving the economy of Malaysia? Find the other question or example. Okay. How you have all these initiatives in the grant for SME, how this one will assist in improving the economy of Malaysia? If I give you this question in 5 points, very simple. That one can be the answer. This answer is actually the conclusion of your assignment. So, answer from the floor? Yes, very good. The one is very good key point, the purchasing power. Because if you remember at one point, people don't have a lot of money, but they don't want to spend. Why they don't want to spend? Because they're scared to go out. What happened I remember 2021, the government give initiative for those who spend, and then normally you get the reduction of the interest. You go and spend for hotel, you get interest reduction. So increase the purchasing power, very good key point. Other than that, just take note. Other than that question, other than that,
government given subsidy to the employer.
given the subsidy so that the people can generate. It's not that they know how to start because they don't know how to start because they already lost them. So one more key point, increase purchasing power. Other than that, this is the question that answered the question, the final outcome of your assignment. One more point. What happened to the resources available? When you have all these initiatives, what happened to the resources? What happened to the resources available? You understand what is resources? Architecture, the plant, the material, the equipment. If you get a lot, if you go to Padang, you can see the gunung, the bukit is there. But then it is not moving. Because the position of the construction industry is stagnant. You do not have the sources of the raw material, and so on. So if you have this initiative, how this will assist? How this initiative assist in getting the resources? They will start to reconstructing. I think that one also highlighted by the second group, reconstructing. So when you mention about reconstructing, you may highlight that the reconstructing is in terms of, is it for the completed project you have to redo something, or maybe you have to reconstruct from the beginning. Okay, reconstructing using the new available resources that is not being disturbed with the pandemic. So that is something that you can think about to answer the question. Okay, I have how many questions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 questions for group number 1. But then the one is open for both, yeah? Okay, for group number 2. Okay, this is my question regarding to the border. Is the border affect the supply chain management? Is the cross border policy supply chain management? Give example, Denmark. For example, you see, my question is how or explain whether the cross border policy affect the supply chain management. You explain this word, this statement using a perfect example. 10 marks. Are you be able to answer that? Class, at the beginning, I think today I heard both group mention about supply chain management. So every time you mention about supply chain management, you have to relate with the supplier. How you want to get the resources from the supplier, how many supplier available, and how the supplier produce something because of the demand that we have. So that one must be related. So can you answer my question? Is the border affect the supply chain management? I already explained to you earlier. The answer is yes or no. Yes, but it is limited. You have to explain that. Okay, I think group number 2 explain. I highlight here. Group number 2 explain that yes, you have issue with the shipping, especially to import the label. Because the label, if you sell last year, they cannot go back. This year, they cannot go back. Even if you work for the oil and gas, you need to wait for 4 to 5 years to come back to Malaysia. So in terms of the example, you can say yes, the one is limited to the resources of the raw material. Then the one is limited. But if your answer is yes, you can give example of labor. Okay, whatever I ask, this one is very important for your final exam as well. Please take note. Okay, what is the suggestion at this point during the early stage of the pandemic? If you mention about the labor issue, what is the suggestion that the company or the local company have to do at the early stage of the pandemic? We have shortage of the labor, so what you do? Hire local people by giving higher wages. Because sometimes I think that one also have been highlighted in the first page of the notice paper and also in the topics parts on the demand. Sometimes because of the wages, the people don't want to join. Okay, so the issue of the labor there can be highlighted at the early stage of the pandemic. Okay, so I also highlight is it limited, and you have to show the conversion on how supply chain is disrupted. Okay, next one. The group number 2 also mentioned about the truck has the limitation to deliver the raw materials, but I think that one I already highlighted. We get the permission to and then permission and also local from MITI. Okay, and then at one point you can see that the people using that MITI to enjoy the tourism, to give the excuse. But then that one is not okay because it's allowed. You can cross border because of your business. You can also use that. You can cross border using the personal driver. So some people say, this one is not fair and so on, but then there is the rules to reduce to reduce the possibility of dissemination of the virus, right? Okay. Can you explain reconstructing? What do you mean by reconstructing? Group number 2, right? Explain this. Huh? Reconstruct the old building for the new purpose. Then only that. Reconstructing. reconstructing.
Oh,
Other than that, what about group number one? What you understand with reconstruct? Renovate. Okay.
Refurbishment.
Refurbishment means you have to demolish a bit, then you have to build up the new one. Yes, I accept your answer. And last one for group number two. How many negative implications that you highlight just now? Two. What is that? Two. What is that? Implication. Force measure. What you understand with the force measure? I heard this one defined by the poster, student in the poster, I think in the Facebook. What you understand with the force measure? What you understand with the force measure? Something that is not.
control.
Something that is not. That is not. For example, this is under force measure. So other than that, when you say force measure, my question is how many negative implications does it have? So the force measure is not there. The force measure is not there. What is the cost? Negative is the cost. Negative is the cost. Sorry? Sorry? Yes. So what is the implication? So what is the negative? How many negative should we have?
Five.
Can you explain? I think I agree.
Waiver of rights under the terms of parties agreement.
Yes, the right. Number two.
So the project records are not sufficient to produce a clear record.
Okay. Other than that,
The subcontractors, material suppliers, and project supply chain delay or shortage.
what I would like to highlight here, you explain other than financial. Only highlight financial. Can you add more? For the assignment, one of the main, that is also one of the points that I would like to see. If you maintain, in a positive maintain one, because I see the second equation, financial loss, and then you should, the arrow, and you put the arrow, and only one is sufficient, get good marks to the assignment. I will say no. I will have to take my no. Maybe you can refer question by and then add minus 2. Okay, definitely. Even though I give you time to amend something and to add in based on the question that I give, but of course they say I give the session 100%. I cannot give you 90%. Even though you do as good as first grade. Okay, example, enhancement of the assignment, because I would like you to give some improvement based on I give you the date of the selection, the date of the new poster, the election. Okay, so please do something. I will share this and make sure all this feedback and the question here is answered in each of the poster, so that when I see the poster, in the poster and also in the report, because this is my intention to make sure that I will not give that I give back marks to you. Okay, right. So that's all. I will share this one later. The feedback and the question. Okay. So this one I will update later because I need to amend something. So that's all.